One of the most important parts of this work is to set up a proper lighting, and there are of course several ways how to approach that, but in this case, when it comes to the stylized 3D illustration, I look at the result as a whole, what colors I want to achieve, what mood I want it to have. So this is really a different process from setting up some realistic lighting, and it also comes with a little bit of more freedom of what lights you can put where and how you can set them up. So I will show you now one method that I use quite often, and that's combination of area light and some creatively placed point lights that give the illustration unique look and character. First of all, let's create the basic area light here. So Shift A again to add an object, and go here where you can see the light option and click area light, and we'll need to bring it up. So let's press G, then Z, and bring it all the way up, maybe 8 or 10 meters or something like that. You can see it on the right side where the Z value changes. So let's bring it up to 10. And now we'll switch the pivot point to the 3D cursor, but I think it's already switched from before. So if you don't have it, switch to 3D cursor, and let's turn off snapping. And right now we will rotate the area light around the 3D cursor, so it creates a backlight pointing directly from the opposite side of the camera. So let's rotate this on the x-axis right now, so press R, then X, and we'll enter -35 degrees. So I want it to shine a little bit more from the top, and right now we can just rotate it around the z-axis 45 degrees. So let's press R, then Z, and 45, and if you press enter, you can now see the area lights shines directly from the opposite direction than we have a camera. Okay, let's go back to the camera view, and to see how this light works, we need to switch lighting for the look dev mode. So click this little arrow icon here. Here you can change all the HDRI textures for the different lighting conditions, but also you can enable scene lights and scene world. So let's enable those, and right away you can see a change in the scene, but this doesn't look like much, but it'll get much better. Let's go right here to the light tab, click the object data, and we'll need to change the color of this light and power. And let's adjust the power to something really strong, like 2500. And right now we start to see all those shadows and how this light actually affects the scene. I want to change the color to some dark blue, so something like this, and we can bring down the value. But to be more precise, you can actually set the values I'm using in the scene. If you switch here to the hex, you can enter the hex code for the color, and let's just enter 203574. Let's press enter, and right now you have the same exact color that I had in the scene I've shown you, and that's because I really want you to achieve that result that I'm promising. So in the end, I really want you to have the feeling that you accomplish the same result that brought you to this course in the first place. And one last thing, we need to increase the size of this a little bit. Now it's set to 1 meter, and you can see it on this square here. So basically that's the area that emits all the light, and I want to increase it a little bit to 1.5, and that'll help us to have a little more soft shadows in the final render. So let's do that. And now my little trick with the world ambience. So let's go to the world tab right here. We'll change the color of the environment and the strength that it uses to shine on your scene, and that sometimes really make the difference when you set up all the lighting and you still feel like there's something missing. When you choose the right color for the environment and bring up the power just enough to fill those dark black shadows with some ambience, sometimes that's the step the scene really needs to go up in quality. So, and again, I will give you the exact color that we'll use for the world lighting. So let's just open the color here, and I use the dark blue color for this kind of scene, something like this. But again, let's just enter the hex value, and it's 170061. And you can see it's not much different from the one I quickly chose. And in the render settings here on this tab, we'll play a little bit with the color management. As I shown you before, sometimes the right exposure and the contrast is the last missing puzzle piece of the perfect lit scene. So let's bring up the exposure here a little bit. We can bring it up to something like 1 to make the ambient light pop up more. And let's change the look here. That's where you set the contrast to medium high contrast. Okay, so this is our basic lighting, and I always look at the lighting in the matter of that it tells the story. And right now the story is that it's a moonlit night, and this is some remote location, forgotten ruin, but there's something awakened here, and there are these runes shining, and there will be much more things shining around. So here, when it comes to moonlight and world lighting, I just wanted to give basic night lighting. And although this is only a preview, we will use the Cycles render engine in the end. But since we are using Eevee to preview in the look dev mode, it wouldn't hurt to set some Eevee settings to make this preview look better while we set up our lights. So yeah, let's just go to the render settings here and enable some Eevee settings that make it look a little bit better. So let's enable ambient occlusion, let's enable bloom, screen space reflections, and I think that'll be enough for now. You can already see this looks a little bit better, and there are some reflections going on. So yeah, let's move on with the point lights. And right now this will get a little bit wild when it comes to lighting, because we will use the point lights to tell some different stories of what happens in the scene. And yeah, there are all these different light sources, and maybe the water shines and something like that. So you can see this place comes alive. So let's add the first point light. Shift A, go to the light, and add a point light. And now let's look from the front with the numpad 1. Press G to grab it, and grab it all the way up here behind the column. And let's now look from the top, and we want to move it somewhere here where the corner is, and I will explain you why. When you look from the camera view, I want this point light to be hidden. I just want to show that there is a lighting there, but I don't want to show the source. I want you just to feel the mood, basically. So yeah, let's click the light settings here, this little tab. Let's change its color to this saturated orange, and let's bring it up all the way to 200. And now the scene is starting to come to life, and this is only the beginning. So let's go to the top view by pressing numpad 7, And we can duplicate this light by pressing Shift D and moving it here behind the pillar. And let's look from the camera again. And this is too low, so let's press G, then Z to grab it up. And let's move it behind. Okay, now we can move it a little bit on the Y-axis, so press G, then Y. And you can basically adjust the position based on where the shadows you want to be and where do you want to have the reflection on the water. This doesn't look so interesting, but if you start to move it, you will see there are reflections on the water starting to appear and some interesting shadows take place. So I think this looks really nice right here. Yeah, I like this. So this could be our second point light. And there is a third that will be very important for this scene. And there'll be blue light in the tunnel. I want this water to really shine in the end. So let's just select this and press H to hide it so we can better see into the tunnel. And right now we can just create a new light where the cursor is. So press Shift A, light, and create a point light. And we can give it a blue, almost cyan color. Something like this. And bring up the value to 100. And now we don't want to see the source of this light, so let's move it closer to the ceiling. So let's press G, then Z, move it up, and maybe a little bit in the corner. So press G, then X, and move it a little bit here. Now let's look from the camera view and maybe press G, then Shift Z, and adjust the position. So again, you get the reflections and the shadows you want. And I think this looks really nice, how the wall is lit and how these reflections look. So I really like this. And we can now press Alt H to enable the water. If you don't see through it, don't worry about that. Right now Eevee isn't set up to properly display translucency on the material, so don't worry about that right now. I want some blue light to shine here behind this tree, because when you look at the scene right now, everything is nice and shiny, but here this looks a little bit dark. So I want to bring more color into that and some more lighting. So yeah, let's just create a new light. So Shift A, light, create a point light. Let's press G, then Shift Z to move it on the X and Y plane. Move it here behind the tree, and then G and Z to move it up. Somewhere here. And we can press the period to get closer. And I want it to be somewhere here, basically. So let's press G, then Shift Z, and move it behind the tree. Let's look from this side and adjust the position a little bit. And as you can see, what they did is to bring out the contours of the tree, and the perception of the space, of the 3D space, is much better right now here. And to match the lighting right here, we just need to adjust the color a little bit. So let's go to the light settings, click on the color, and let's make it blue. It can be a little bit darker, so we are transitioning from this really bright blue light to something a little bit dim, and we can here maybe bring this up to 20. And right away I just love how this blue color creates this gradient here, and it ends with the shining glyph. I wanted to add some visual interest here as well, but I can't just place the light right there. So let's just click here on the larger leaf. Let's hold Shift and right bracket to select it all. Let's go to the top view with number 7. Press Alt D to duplicate, and let's move this right here. We will adjust the placement a little bit, and yeah, let's switch this to median point. Let's double R and bring up this leaf right here. Okay, and right now we have a place where we can fit another point light, so let's click the blue light here, go to the top view, press Shift D to duplicate and move it behind this leaf. Now we can look from the side a little bit more and bring it up. You want to have it over the surface, because in cycles it wouldn't shine at all. Okay, and let's go to this view and let's change this to orange color. You can maybe go even a little bit red. Yeah, but let's just go with a really saturated and dark orange. Okay, now this is much more interesting, and you have a feeling that there's something going on behind the plant, and it makes all these beautiful shadows and lights here, and I really love this kind of lighting.